Hey guys, Cheese24 here, and today we're going to be watching Glass of Water. Who was the best villain? By Jerry Peet. And this was requested to me by Foxy the Pirate. I sure hope he doesn't try to get me tonight. Oh, goodness. But, yeah. I like this other video, the other two videos I did, so hopefully this one will be as good. Let's just go. This is 24 minutes and 20 seconds. Good lord. Glass of Water by Jerry, with Jerry. Alright. Dun, 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 dun. I'm trying to... Hey, I got you all. Chrysalis. At my moon, Discord. Forgot his name. Sunset Shimmer. And that guy.
It has been 4 years since Friendship is Magic first aired, and in that time we've had 91 episodes, 2 feature-length films, and a whole lot of stuff in between.
Yep.
And ever since its original air date, the arguments have never once stopped, ever. Best pony, worst pony, best OTP, worst OTP, best episode, worst episode. But in all the discussions, I've always liked the villain discussions the most.
Yeah.
What a surprise. Someone on YouTube really likes villains. What a shock.
I like villains.
The main reason for that, though, is that there's so few of them. Discussing best pony or worst pony is really difficult because there's over 20 in the main and supporting cast, and about 100 others that the community likes to project onto, which turns the whole discussion into a big mess. Same with pairings and episodes, there's just too many variables to really get into. But we've only got about 7 main villains. 7's a nice number, a really nice, manageable number. Now for this discussion, I'm going to be including reformed characters as villains, simply to avoid confusion. I'm also not going to be including tertiary antagonists like Gilda or Trixie, or characters who only serve as underlings to a more threatening villain. Also, I'm going to be including thoughts from the community sprinkled out as we go through each villain and decide who is the queen. To start off,
Queen, but there's guys in there too.
This is where the ensemble Dark Horse tropes hits the hardest. Literally. She was our first exposure to evil within Equestria. So here we have a comment from L'Oreo Cookies, which reads,
L'Oreo
Nightmare
Cookies?
Moon continues to be an interesting antagonist to go back to, because she's a unique source of pain for Celestia and shame for Luna. She allows writers and fans to explore the relationship between the two sisters and delve into complex emotions.
I want an
like
episode
shame and
that
regret.
follows
So
only
Celestia
those
had
two.
actually noticed the
Or maybe a
love
movie
sad and
going back
Nightmare
to how
Moon
they
had
followed
had.
the sisters,
So Nightmare
the
Moon
Celestial
has heroes
sisters.
fall storylines.
That'd be nice.
Characters like Arthas or Anakin Skywalker.
Who?
Desire as an antagonist is only for power. She wants to rule Equestria as a single ruler and eliminate Princess Celestia entirely, and thus bring about eternal night. The design of Nightmare Moon is very simple when you really think about it. Bring about eternal night, purge the daylight, shoot her with rainbows, and we're done. Personally, I always felt that Nightmare Moon was one of the weaker villains, and that comes entirely from having to star in the premiere. We all remember how badly paced the premiere was, and for good reason. The writing team had 40 minutes to establish this world, the main characters, Pony Society, and the villain along with her backstory. I can't think of any TV series on the planet where the very first episode is the very best episode, and that's entirely because of this problem. That's not to say Nightmare Moon is a bad villain, there just wasn't enough of her. I think she has a grand total of 10 minutes on screen. They were really great 10 minutes, but it was still only 10 minutes. Here we have a comment from Jello King. Think about it, if Nightmare Moon won, the results could have been catastrophic. You know how ponies have a diet consisting of pretty much produce? If Nightmare Moon got her way and plunged Equestria into eternal darkness, plants might get the water they need, but they wouldn't get the sunlight they would need, so they wouldn't be able to grow properly. The ponies could get sick or even die. They could always resort to eating grass, I suppose, but that's a finite resource. And that's true. Nightmare Moon does have probably the most lethal plan out of every villain, but the lethality itself isn't intentional. Hearth's-warming Eve established that without a proper day and night cycle, the Equestrians can't grow their food. Nightmare Moon only wanted to rule Equestria through eternal night. She didn't want to kill anyone, but her plan of bringing about eternal night would do exactly that. It's hard to tell if that makes Nightmare Moon an effective villain or an incredibly
This show gets
incompetent
deep.
villain, but it does
This is getting deep, man.
Here we have another comment from
Real deep.
Sparrow, I have no idea.
Spario.
I dislike Nightmare Moon because she was a complete idiot. She wanted to bring about eternal night so that ponies would appreciate her nights. Of course, eternal night would kill almost all plant life at Equestria, leading to the extinction of the ponies in Equestria. Who will appreciate her night when everyone is dead? And that's true. Nightmare Moon is without a doubt holding the worst idiot ball out of all 8 villains. It's not just that her plan is bound to wind up with her own defeat, it's that it ends terribly for absolutely everyone. But we aren't here to decide the worst villain, we're here to decide the best. So my final rating for Nightmare Moon is 6 elements of magic rocks out of 10. So moving on to
Okay.
Discord.
Discord.
Adoration shines the hardest, and the fangirls are the most dedicated.
Hey, it's what's her face? For name.
Favorite MLP villain? Discord. While Tyrek and Sombra were more effective than Discord, Discord still comes a close second and has been beaten presence of character. While the erstwhile mentioned villains may have been threatening and intelligent, Discord was threatening, intelligent, and hilarious.
Yeah, that's true. He was.
The most significant aspect, though, is how personal of a threat Discord was, breaking the ponies on an emotional level and allowing for more compelling drama. Discord has got to be the only example of fan service done perfectly. The Return of Harmony is packed full of nods to both web culture and 90s TV that are intended to register more with the older viewers than they are with the younger viewers. And the grand finale of the whole thing is Discord, designed from the ground up to be a reference to Q from Star Trek, so much so that they actually cast John himself to voice him. And you can tell that he is loving every single minute of the whole thing. It's safe to say that Discord stole the show instantaneously. All they had to do was announce that John Delancey was going to be on the show, and that was a shut up and take my money moment.
Yeah.
Who only shows up to establish
Although I had no idea who that was, John Delancey was, until really that episode, so.
He spares time to toy with each of the main six, playing on their vices to corrupt them, rendering the elements of harmony useless, and then spends the rest of the episode toying with Twilight. In fact, he could have easily just made them disappear.
Easily. He hid them before, just make them not exist.
Here we have another from L'Oreo Cookies, which reads,
Oreo cookies.
Discord is a fan favorite and has received a ton of character development, so he's arguably the most interesting villain, both within his own episodes and over the course of the show. While he follows a pretty normal path of evil villain turning into a good guy, he still retains that element of chaos and thoroughly enjoys the mischief, remaining a sort of ambiguous, pretty selfish character in contrast to his selfless and diminutive best friend Fluttershy. And that's a really good point to make. Discord has gotten more screen time than any other villain in the series. He's not even the only villain to be reformed, but he's the only one who has been properly developed as a character. Luna had one token episode that never amounted to anything after that. On the other hand, Discord is shown to be...
Write more Luna episodes. Bring more of those Celestial Sister episodes. I want those.
Anarchy for no other reason than for sick grins. He's not inherently evil. He's just Alice in Wonderland made manifest. And he also continues this trend even after he's been reformed. He doesn't really turn into a good guy per se. He just changes allegiance. He still appears to screw with the main six, particularly Twilight, and he still goes out of his way to cause as much mayhem as he possibly can. One thing nobody really commented on when I put out the call for people's favorite villains was just how brilliant Discord was at covering his bases. We all know that the vines from the Tree of Harmony were planted by him, and he planted them to drain the tree of its energy and free him from the elements. He knew they could stop him, and as a result set up a plan to counter it. He just underestimated how powerful the tree was.
Oh yes, I'm about done with season 4, so yeah.
And I really like that. My final rating for Discord is 8 Captain Janeway Death Glares out of 10.
Wait. Who? Huh? How is that a logical way to rate stuff?
To start off Queen Chrysalis, we have a comment from an anonymous user. So one of my favorite villains would have to be Chrysalis, probably due to her motivations for invading Equestria. As she stated,
what were her motivations anyway?
Food for her subjects, and Equestria holds more love than any other region she found. She isn't invading the land for power or her own intentions, but rather for her own subjects. While her actions may not be commendable, the fact that she's invading not for herself, but for the good of her kingdom is interesting about her. Now this is a really good point about Queen Chrysalis. So far she's the only villain motivated in a somewhat plausible way. Other villains want to take over the world, or destroy the world, or enslave the world. But Chrysalis is concerned about food. In essence, Equestria has a resource that they need. Just replace the names with more censor-provoking ones, and you have every war fought in the last 150 years. Now, there's actually an entire video done by Commander Firebrand that talks about the brilliance of Chrysalis' plan to invade Equestria, and is one of the reasons this section is far shorter than the others. One thing that's brought up is the idea that every supposed blunder in her impersonation of Cadence is calculated and intentional to alienate Twilight and render the elements of harmony useless. It's an interesting point.
Really?
This is part of what makes Chrysalis so divisive. This is the problem you have with a master manipulator. Sure, the main heroine can see through your charade, but how do you know that isn't intentional? How do you know that she doesn't actually want you to figure her out in order to paint you as paranoid and untrustworthy? The only problem here is that this sort of character design requires a lot of reading between the lines, something that takes multiple viewings in order to catch and actually leaves a very bad first impression for most people.
Again,
additionally, once she actually
he's a
reveals herself,
beautiful
she's
skull.
far from sure of her own victory. Evil Overlord rule number 6. I will not gloat over my enemies or I kill them. Chrysalis winds up the Frozen of
doctor.
villains. Her brilliance is really only manifest the second time you watch it. Because of that, my final rating for Queen Chrysalis is 7 Angry Twilights out of 10. Here we we have one from Noob Jr. Next comes Sombra, who is infamous for having no personality, and I don't think he needs to. Being inspired by Sauron, he's a villain who's attempting to return, and his mere shadow instills fear and hurts others. So his theme of fear is really, really strong, and his purpose in the episode is not to be a character, but a force. While I think that idea is brilliant,
Just like the never-ending story in The Fear.
What really brings him down to me is that he's not too well executed. It's harder to feel his threat when we barely get to see him act, and his infamous zombie-like speech is detrimental. But being Season 3 being rushed explains that. Sombra is one of my personal favorite villains.
Is that why it was short?
He has a presence unlike any of the others. Other villains have the need to really get up in the main character's face and laugh like crazy, except for one. Sombra, on the
that
other
was
hand,
reckless, my friend.
similar to Arthas or Sauron. They establish just how powerful and fearsome he is, and how dangerous it would be if he were to return. You can see this effect in simply how anxious everyone is while searching for the Crystal Heart, with the looming threat of Sombra and his dark magic on the horizon. The way they implemented it in the episode itself helped this, as Sombra spends 95% of
Sorry,
the
I'm not saying as much. This is just very thought-provoking.
Counting down the seconds before the shield falls and the Crystal Empire is his once again. However, this is where the flaws lie in Sombra's design. This is where Sauron tends to fall flat as well. They spend the whole episode hyping him up. They spend an entire 40 minutes going on about how dangerous he is, and then defeat him before that danger can actually pay off. In regards to hype villains like this, the only one I've seen work perfectly has been Arthas, who had an entire World of Warcraft expansion devoted to hyping him up, and then was the best and hardest boss fight in the game that still kills raid groups to this day. That is hype payoff. Sombra didn't have that. It's a shame considering how brilliant genre savvy he is.
I think the Crystallians actually look cooler without all the crystal stuff on them.
Other villain when it comes to his cunning, the one trait of a villain everyone seems to love. He hid away the Crystal Heart, which was required to defeat him, and erased all the Crystal Ponies' knowledge of it ever having existed at all. While not outright stating to be his doing, the last page of the Crystal Empire history book Twilight finds was also torn out. The trap he laid at the bottom of the staircase of his throne room shows ponies an illusion of their greatest fear, meaning if Spike had not gone with Twilight, she would have been frozen by the illusion and he would have won. This is on top of the fact he put the Crystal Heart in his castle because he was the Dreaded, meaning the Crystal Ponies would be too terrified of him to even try looking for it. Then hid the entrance to the chamber so that the only way to open it was to be able to use his dark magic that presumably a truly incorruptible hero would be unable or unwilling to use. And finally,
then how'd she use it?
To trigger a spell, beginning to spread his dark crystals inside the castle and trapping whoever got that far at the top of the tower, unable to use the heart. Not to mention the anti-teleport spell he casts on the trap, so that even a powerful magician cannot leave so easily. This
really
comes within a hair's breadth of succeeding while barely having to lift a hoof. Nightmare Moon and Discord spent an episode trying to stop the one thing that could beat them. Sombra already did a very good job of it preemptively. Spike is the only factor Sombra flat out did not account for. Other villains flat out mocked the magic of friendship, but Sombra didn't even consider it, and it manifested itself in a rather subtle way. Sombra is also the only villain that DHX have flat out killed off completely.
Hey, that dude's gotta come back. I always love to see him in like a new movie, in that new movie that's coming out.
For his prey to come to him. My final rating for King Sombra is 8 crystal hearts out of 10. Oh,
what kind of rating is that?
The problem with asking people about their favorite villains comes once we reach Sunset Shimmer, because to put it simply, nobody likes Sunset Shimmer.
I like her.
This comment from L'Oreo Cookie sums it up perfectly. Sunset Shimmer was, in her own movie, just a jerk and a pretty typical bratty or hungry teen. She was boring and uninteresting in my personal opinion, but it was fixed in Rainbow Rocks.
It was.
I'm rather surprised to find out she's the main character all along. That she learned about the true meaning of friendship and gains her pony ears and ponytail. The clincher was when she got her own red ribbon in that friendship rainbow of power. Sunset was an incredibly interesting
Really? I didn't notice that.
Turned hero. The really big problem with Sunset Shimmer is that her character in the first Equestria Girls movie was the single biggest cliche you would ever find. And not in a good way, like with the very next entry on this list. In a bad way. In a Princess Tiana way. There's no two ways about this. I know I said I wanted to remain positive, but Sunset Shimmer is terrible. The worst. Entirely because her whole plan is to mind bend some teenagers and invade Equestria. Okay, I can think of 4, 5, 6 reasons this is not going to work.
Yeah.
Equestria has dealt with some pretty fearsome and destructive villains.
Get the military in it. That might help.
And a couple hundred teenagers is going to be child's play for them.
Or just shoot a nuke in there. That'd be fine.
Villain is a bratty teenage girl putting far more value in a school dance than is needed. Obviously, there are some stakes at hand, but her actual behavior is not indicative of someone who is hungry for power, but it's telling of someone who is vain. Sunset Shimmer, with all her faults as a character, is anything but vain. Maybe Rarity would get this obsessed with pageantry, but here it sticks out like the sorest of thumbs, and the fact that the rest of the movie doesn't...
Again, so I'm not saying much, it's just
painful to sit through.
I'm not too good with speaking during these while it's making you think. That's why it's hard for me to speak, because it's very thought-provoking, like I said before.
Discord got a few token episodes in the rise of Tyrek to sort of work his way into a reformation, and Luna got a single episode and ended up being put to bed entirely. Sunset, on the other hand, felt like the writers were really trying to make up for the fact that she had very little to offer in the first movie. We see that while she has been making efforts to reform, nobody is really buying it. Kind of how the viewers weren't buying it at the end of it.
I would like to see, like, in the next movie or something like that, if she...
how much everyone can't stand her.
Can't? If she could, like, actually become a villain, or be kind of like the whole Anakin becomes Vader-like thing. That'd be neat.
Exactly what they're saying about her. In real life, a lot of high school students subject to this treatment tend to want to escape from the pain, so to speak. Let's just be grateful that
Suicide.
5 were
never do that.
Pick up the pieces and stick by her, or else Sunset's story could have gone a lot worse than it did. Speaking of how it went, while I'm not a fan of the lyrics to any of the main six's music, Sunset's saving throw at the end is probably the single most applause-worthy moment in the series thus far. Come on, she took off the jacket. In movie language, that is the universal symbol for shit's about to go down.
It is. That's why I wear a jacket. When that comes off, you just know you gotta watch out.
My final rating is 10 real elements of magic out of 10. Combined, we have a final score of 7 element crowns out of 10. Overall, Sunset Shimmer is the most unique character the series has, and I really want to see more of her.
Me too, but...
Wait, no, I didn't mean it that way. Go to the next one. Go
What the heck is... Oh.
And now we come to the big guy, the big centaur ham himself, Lord Tyrek. Oh boy, this one was certainly...
I have not seen the finale yet. Actually, that's the last episode I have to watch. And I have yet to see it.
He even duped Discord into looking like a chump. Not to mention he did an unspeakable act of taking all the magic from all the ponies in Equestria and then some. That's basically taking away someone's bending in Avatar: The Last Airbender. So Tyrek is a reimagining of a Generation 1 villain in all his 80s glory, and it's here you realize just how much the show staff love the Master Manipulator trope. How do you realize this? Tyrek has it shoehorned into his repertoire. He starts out very weak and actually has to smooth talk Discord into joining him. This helps him round up the equestrian people to have their magic drained from them to fuel Tyrek's thirst for power. Once he's finished with them, he sets his sights on Alicorn magic. Tyrek is a difficult character to actually critique, because his overall design is so simple that Platinum Games could write it. Much of Tyrek's appeal comes from the spectrum. Tyrek is all about brute force once he has his power back. This culminates in... what else?
Cover my eyes. Cover my eyes. Cover my eyes. I have not seen the episode yet. Cover my eyes. I haven't seen the episode yet. I'm covering my eyes. I'm covering my eyes. I haven't seen the episode yet. Cover my eyes. I'm covering my eyes. Eyes are covered. I can't. I'm covering my eyes. I don't want to spoil any of this with the any visuals. Please. Turn off now. Please. I haven't seen that. This is literally the last episode I have to... Thank you.
It's like a Michael Bay movie, only not terrible.
It's literally the last episode I have to watch, and good lord, I don't want to learn anything about it.
Or anything quite so played out or time-consuming. No, instead it's just, here's a big red demon, go find him and shoot him. The appeal lies in the simplicity. If the Legend of Korra taught us anything, it's that the more complex you make your villains, the more likely it is that as a writer you're gonna fall into more tiresome cliches. Sometimes you don't need to weave this complex web of a plot. What we end up with is praising Tyrek for all the things he doesn't force into the story. Oh, are we grappling with the paranoia that someone is not who they say they are? Are we trying to keep a populace from freaking out over the looming threat of an apocalypse? Are we being forced to explain to our children why the pretty ladies are making them feel funny? Okay, how about this? Giant-ass demon right over there! Get over your shit and shoot him in the face! Shoot him in
Cover my eyes, go on, go on. Okay.
Has at least contrived reasons for wanting to take over Equestria, but Tyrek does it just because he's evil and he's a pain in the ass. It
yeah.
Wait, huh? Setup, and what nails the final
that makes sense though.
Is that the voice actor,
yeah, he's got a mohawk.
I think that's how you pronounce it, is clearly loving
Gotcha-shin?
He's like the Tim Curry of My Little Pony villains. Every second he's on screen, he's just stealing the entire show and giving fuel for analysts to make more and more jokes about bad Saturday morning cartoons.
Mighty Ducks.
He's the most memorable character in an episode that had Discord in it. And for that, my final rating for Tyrek is 9 force shockwaves out of 10.
Shockwaves? Ooh, wow. He didn't know that you found. Ooh, wow. Ooh, wow. How is this not the good stuff?
Villain, the mistress of mind control herself, Adagio Dazzle.
Yeah!
From Volkuden.
Volkuden. Volkuden.
Favorite villain is easily Adagio Dazzle.
I do like her, she's cool.
She seems to represent two very cool mythical monsters, the Siren and the Succubus.
Oh, I didn't notice that Succubus part.
For her goals, she's not trying to destroy the world, she's trying to eat. And for her, sustenance is adoration. Beyond that, she has the chrysalis level of subtle, not subtle power with an added intimidation. Because she's so strong, she can be seen as scary but alluring. So far, the Sirens are the most shrouded in mystery. The most we get about them is a quick little backstory in the movie itself, where they were a force to be reckoned with back in Equestria's olden days, before being banished to the human world. In the actual plot, Adagio discovers equestrian magic and is able to absorb it and use it to do the very same with the human world. Now, I'm going to say this right now. Adagio scares the crap out of it. Right from the very first trailer, we all knew something was up.
Yeah, I guess a small bit.
And don't even try saying you weren't. Adagio plays the master manipulator trope absolutely perfectly. I don't think I've seen a character this manipulative and cunning since Kreia. She never reveals her full hand, never plays every card right away. She has that deadly combination of being both dangerously cunning and incredibly patient. She's like a spider.
Yeah, that's the worst villain you can get.
And once she does, she'll snatch it up with absolutely no
all you need is unpredictability, and then you got the perfect villain. Even though perfection does not exist.
To stop and the payoff to commence. Adagio's plan actually has some payoff, and that makes them more threatening the more the movie continues to build to its satisfying climax.
Exactly.
At the same time, even if you're the most oblivious knob in the room, you'll know right away that something is off with this woman. The way she moves, holds herself, hypnotizes both the other characters and the audience, the way she can twist and warp the magic of friendship for her own twisted ends. She's a freaking machine of evil, and she lets everybody know it while simultaneously
and that's why she's awesome.
She's a genuinely intimidating woman, and her magic is even more intimidating. Mind control is old school, nothing new there. But everyone mind controlled, pumping even more power into what is already walking nightmare fuel, doing the same thing with the magic of friendship and keeping everyone wrapped dangerously around her finger. You're often left wondering just how much damage they could have done at full power. They're the only villains to be banished into another world entirely. The Sirens were running rampant across Equestria about 1,000 years ago. Their magic involves sowing the seeds of conflict to feed off the negative energy.
Weren't they going to feed off a war?
Things in equestrian history all happened around that same time. Oh no! And now we know why Celestia, Luna, and Cadence were guarding that mirror portal in the first movie. She's why! And the Sirens don't even use negative energy for food. It's only to keep their voices strong and enchanting so that they can continue to charm and control people. It's not about survival like the Changelings. It's entirely about their power to dominate and control. I can think of no better word to describe Adagio other than monster. And when it finally comes time for the final
good monster. Not good as in such a good person, but good as in a good one. I'm confused now.
That they actually managed to pull it off and defeat them. That's the big difference between everyone else.
Actually, if Spike would have fallen into that pit, they would have never gotten out, and they would have lost.
More MacGuffins out of their ass to instantly win. But with Adagio, they don't pull another solution out of a hat. They bolster up for a second shot and win an actual battle. It's like if the battle between Tyrek and Twilight didn't force a stalemate. So we're left with someone cunning, always 5 steps ahead of her enemy, genuinely frightening and competent in battle all at once. The perfect execution of a villain, and the only 10 equestrian pendants out of 10 on this list for perfectly depicting an absolute sadist.
And everyone says that she's a horrible villain.
We have Adagio Dazzle with 10 out of 10.
She's actually a really good villain.
Then we have a tie of King Sombra and Discord with an 8 out of 10, followed by Sunset Shimmer and Chrysalis with 7 out of 10, and Nightmare Moon bringing up the rear with a 6.
Really?
They differ, as villains leave very different impressions on everyone based on whatever tropes and cliches you like or are willing to put up with. If you're someone who watches a lot of anime, you're probably going to love Tyrek. If you're someone who plays a lot of Warcraft, you're probably going to love Sombra. I know I do. If you grew up with Star Trek, naturally Discord's going to be the one you love the most. Honestly, the only type of villain I don't like doesn't appear in Friendship is Magic. That's the Social Revolution villain. So for me, I like all of them. I don't dislike a single villain here. It's just that something has to be last. Anyway, that's it for me.
Yeah, I guess so.
I'm Jerry, and I really need a glass of water.
Hey, Jerry.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, thanks. Yeah, that was, That was really thought-provoking. Going through all that. better hit the pause button soon. Really thought-provoking. That's... Oh, my hit. Oh, I love that laugh. Okay. That was great. Wow. Again, I know I say that a lot at the end of these, but it's just true. And that was, unlike most other videos I do, that was actually very thought-provoking. It made me think a lot. And the points that he made were really good. The only one I didn't really understand much was the T-Rex guy, because that's literally the last episode I have to watch. Which makes me think maybe I should have watched that one before I did this video. But it's too late for that now. So, yeah. No. Sorry. I don't know what that was about. Yeah, that was great. And I didn't notice Adagio having a succubus kind of field tour. No, now that I mentioned it, she does have a bit of that tour. All the adults are great, but I have to agree with your Gary here. I do like Adagio the most. Mainly because if she just wasn't so predictable. She's predictable. That's her one flaw. She's very predictable. If she just wasn't predictable, she would be the greatest villain I could ever think of. But if it wasn't for that, yes. I'm drawing blanks here. I'm shooting blanks. So, yeah, well, guys, remember let's see. If you guys like to, you can put down in the comments which villain you like the best. And you guys, any videos want me to react to do a video to, just put them in the comments. I'll happily do them. And so, you guys remember, stand strong and run and going. Wrong button.